Hi everybody, it's Johnny Seed here again, and it's time for another pickup video. These are my record pickups for June and July 2018. There's not a great deal. I think there's 9 records altogether. There's one double album and a 12-inch. I've been on a little bit of a budget this time, so I've not trying to be going wild, but I have stuck to my £5 limit. Most of these for a lot less. I'll explain where I got them from as I go along. Right, so first up, this is going back to the end of June. It was the last week of June. I was just leaving work. I work at a university on a campus, and as I was leaving work to walk across the campus, I came across this van, and it was full of records, boxes and boxes of records. Obviously that caught my attention, so I was having a look. And a guy appeared and he said, "Oh yeah, we're having a record fair here over the next couple of days." This was in one of the buildings at the university. So I thought, oh fantastic. So he said, "Yeah, come back in the morning and everything will be ready for you to have a look at." So I thought that was a nice bonus. Bit of an odd time to have it, end of June. There's not really many people on campus this time of year, but all the better for me. So I went back the next day and had a rummage around. He had a lot of stuff. He probably had about, I don't know, 25 sort of banana crates, but fruit boxes full of records and some good stuff. It wasn't just the crap that you find in the charity shops. And he said that everything was, unless marked the price, everything was probably about £2. But he didn't have time, he said, to price everything up. So I think you just have to ask him, how much he wanted for each thing. Yeah, and in general, there was some good quality stuff, as I said. And you could tell that he'd sort of seeded each of the boxes with at least one very, very good record, usually at the front. Why not? I saw he had 1999 by Prince, and I think Purple Rain he was in there, but I think he was looking at around 30 quid for them. As I got there the next day, there was some guy already handing over 30 quid for a copy of Sgt. Pepper, which looked in good nick. I didn't get a chance to ask and find out whether was it a reissue or anything like that, but it had all the inserts in it. He also had Master of Reality, Black Sabbath, which I was very tempted, but I think he wanted £25 for it, and it was the NEMS reissue, so I kind of passed on that. And in general, apart from the stuff that was obviously he looked after because it was worth a bit of money, the rest of it I think he probably just kept in these boxes all the time, and these boxes I think lived in his van because everything had a bit of a musk of damp about it. Like everything had been stored outside over the winter, so he either just keeps them in his garage or keeps them in the van, which is a shame. But I guess if he's got nowhere else to put them, it's not going to help improve the quality of his stock in the long term. Things aren't going to get better. So yeah, damp smells aside, I did pick up a couple of things. For I think this was £3. I got ZZ Top Fandango, the 1975 album. I always had a little bit of a soft spot for ZZ Top, especially the earlier records. I do like the mid-80s stuff, Eliminator, etc., which all they had their hits on. So yeah, Fandango. Side 1 of this is actually a live recording from the early 70s. It's a side 1 of The Warehouse, New Orleans, captured as it came down, hot, spontaneous, and presented to you honestly, without the assistance of studio gimmicks. Not a mantra they stuck to come like 1985. But there we have Thunderbird, Jailhouse Rock, and something called the Backdoor Medley, featuring Backdoor Love Affair, Mellow Down Easy, Dixon, I guess that's Dixon was who wrote it, Willie Dixon? I don't know what I'm talking about now. Backdoor Love Affair number 2, and Long Distance Boogie. And on side 2, which is the studio recorded side, we have Nasty Dogs and Funky Kings, which is great, Blue Jean Blues, Balinese, Mexican Blackbird, Heard It on the X, which is almost punk-like in its tempo anyway, and big song Tush. So yeah, ZZ Top, Fandango. And I also picked up from this mini record fair, it was a fair in only name only really, it was just him there. I got Steve Hillage album e.l.o. Now I picked this up because it's got Hurdy Gurdy Man on it. I don't know if you can see the track listing there. And this is the album that was playing in The Young Ones. I think it's the episode where, I'm not sure the exact episode, but it's where Neil's having a party and then Warlock comes in, and he was a policeman and smashes up the pie, and he goes, "Oh no, Steve Hillage."
Right, listen. Oh no. Village.
I'll see if I can find the clip. Anyway, so yeah, so for nostalgic reasons, I thought I'd get the album that song appeared on. I think the song that's playing on the Young Ones is Electric Gypsies. So yeah, Steve Hillage, who later went on to be in Gong. Yeah, so and I actually really enjoyed this. It's what you'd expect. It's sort of chilled out, psychedelic. The version of Hurdy Gurdy Man goes on for 6 minutes and inexplicably speeds up at the end. That's a bit of a freak out. So yeah, this was produced and engineered by Todd Rundgren in 1976, and it's on Virgin. I'll just show you the label, as it's the original label. There we go, in green. So yes, Steve Hillage and e.l.o. Alright, so the next couple I got from Preston Market. There's a guy on there who's there every Tuesday and Thursday and has some good stuff, reasonably priced. And I picked up a couple of heavy metal albums. First of all, we have Anthrax, State of Euphoria, something I've not heard in a long time. There's the reverse. This is what I'd call good party music. Good for thrashing around and headbanging, although I did realise that my headbanging days are long gone now after the first 10 minutes of this. Yes, nearly gave myself a crick neck. It's been a long time since I did anything like that. And I think the single off this one was Antisocial. That's what I remember hearing in the clubs quite a lot anyway. Like them. And this is really good, fantastic condition as well. I've got a feeling this may have been £6. I'm not sure. I got this along with the next one for a tenner. So, but yeah, very good condition this. And there is the label. And also on a similar heavy vibe, but not quite thrash, we have Raven, Life's a Bitch. And yes, this is one of those albums that sounds just like the cover. Yes, this is very 80s metal, very much, you know, fist pumping and screaming. Good party music again. You know, don't go looking for depth in a Raven record. There seems to be a lot of these metal bands from the 80s with names like Raven and Riot and Rat. But this is a good laugh actually. I like the song Pick Your Window, track 2 on side 1. I thought it was a lot of fun. So yeah, this is good sort of drink some beers and pogo around your room sort of record. I actually quite enjoyed it, yes. And also from the market, but from a different stall, I picked up this. This caught my eye. It was just sticking out of a box. And when you go through enough record boxes in, you know, flea markets and charity shops, your kind of eye becomes a bit sort of trained to spot anything that looks a bit out of the ordinary, because you just get so used to seeing like easy listening and Jim Reeves records and country records and musical records, musicals, but anything that not of that ilk kind of. So anyway, this is the band is called Shudder to Think, and this is the album 10 Spot. I had never heard of this band. I picked up this record because it just looked so different from everything else that I'd seen. I flipped it over and I could see, oh, there's a guy with dreads and a guitar on the back, so that's promising. So I just snapped it up. I said to the guy, how much do you want? And he said 50 pence. So I said, that's the price is right. So I grabbed it. This is from 1990 on Discord Records. Shudder to Think are a indie rock band from Washington DC, apparently. And this is, I think, is their third album. And yeah, it's quite good actually. The best way I can describe it would be to say maybe Pixies-ish, Pixies in the vocals. The only downside to it, I think, is the way it's been mixed and recorded. The drums are very loud on it. It's a very good drum sound. I can tell they probably spent a lot of time getting a really neat drum sound. Because of the way the vocals are sort of quite ethereal, there's a lot of harmonies going on. And the guitars are quite loud. I think the vocals have got a little bit lost in the mix somewhere. That's been my only sort of criticism of it. So Summertime Train, On the Rain, Rag and Speak, I think were the 4 tracks I liked the most of this after my first listen. I should probably give this one another couple of goes though. And in the same box as the Shudder to Think, behind it was this. This is probably going to be the pick of the video. This is Robin Trower, Long Misty Days, which was mine for the princely sum of 50 pence. Yeah, I picked this up and I'd I'd heard the name Robin Trower. I knew he was a guitar player, but that was about it. I didn't know he was in Procol Harum, and I didn't know that he made such great music. This is really good. This is actually fantastic. This is they're a three-piece. This is, if you like guitar, if you like heavy guitar and guitars played in lots of different styles, then I recommend picking up this Robin Trower album here. The track on it, Long Misty Days, it sounded a bit almost like kind of a metal drone sort of song, like something like Sun. It's like really sort of loud fuzzy guitars. I think maybe even fuzz bass, and I do like a little bit of fuzz bass. There's a lot going on this album. There's some bits of it that sound a bit like Santana with some of the rhythms playing. There's some Hendrixy stuff. There's a lot of wah wah. Now there's only a three-piece, so I don't know whether he was using some sort of octave pedal or harmonizer pedal. I don't know if they even know if they had them in 1976, or whether he's just overdubbing it. But there's some really good guitar harmonies on here. You know, it sounds a bit like two guitarists dueling it out, but I'm guessing it was just him. And oddly, it's got a cover version of the song Sailing on here, which of course was made famous by Rod Stewart, which I guess is a bit of a low point. It's not a terrible version, it just doesn't seem to fit in with the rest of the kind of freak out tracks on here. So yeah, I was really chuffed to find this for 50p, so I was looking out for some more Robin Trower. Right, and another stall on the market had a copy of Frankie Goes to Hollywood's Two Tribes on 12-inch. I'm going to be doing a video next about 12-inch records, so I'll save this one for that, so you'll be seeing this one again. Not in great shape. I got this one and the next one I'm going to show for a £5. So, and that next one is Jeff Wayne's War of the Worlds. Now I saw James Griffiths pick this as a underrated album on his competition entry for the Keen Ear channel, and he said you know, he felt this one doesn't get as much respect as it deserves, or something along those lines. Now I'd obviously been aware of Jeff Wayne's War of the Worlds since it came out in the late 70s. I remember, you know, I've heard the single a lot, and Forever Autumn. They still get played on the radio now. But for some reason I'd never listened to this all the way through. At least I don't remember. I don't have any memory of listening to it all the way through. It does look very familiar though. I don't know whether I had possibly had this as a poster on my wall as I was a kid. And some of the artwork on the inside also looks very familiar as well. That's the gatefold. And we have this booklet. Unfortunately this one is not in great condition. I don't know if there's any pages missing either, because it's very loose on the inside, as you can see, not in the best nick. But I've definitely seen all these pictures before somewhere. Like I say, yeah, maybe I had posters of them on my wall when I was a kid, because I don't remember listening to the this actual album. So yeah, so I thought I'd give it a go, and yeah, I enjoyed it. I did enjoy it quite a lot. Getting Richard Burton involved was an inspired move. I don't know whether the thing that put me off was the fact that it had David Essex in it, and also this feeling that I seem to remember when I was back in the 80s when I was a teenager, there was a lot of kind of stigma about this. I think it was a sort of record that, you know, maybe your parents would listen to, or people who were slightly geeky would listen to. You know, it wasn't very edgy, and so I don't know whether that had put me off. I know I shouldn't do it. I know it's ridiculous, but you know, when you're a teenager, things like that can sometimes be more important than they actually are. So, so if you've not heard this before, I'd recommend going and checking it out. It does sound a bit 70s, if you think a bit like e.l.o. But there is aspects in here of, I'm hearing little bits of like e.l.o. Schifrin of film music, with mixed in with sort of Doctor Who level synthesizer, like BBC Radiophonic Workshop level sound effects, which really does add to the experience, you know, as far as the nostalgia goes as well. Side 2 gets a little bit weird at the beginning, and then it moves into Forever Autumn. So, and my only criticism would be that, especially on the sides 1 and 2, he just tends to reuse some of his licks, so his musical hooks tend to appear quite often. I mean, they are great hooks, you know, and I can't blame him for wanting to get his money's worth out of them. but it just seemed to be a little bit like, oh, we'll just chuck the main theme in again here and there. You know, a slight criticism, I suppose. So on the second disc, that's when we have Phil Lynott turn up, playing a very hip sounding priest. But yeah, and then David Essex turns up, and he's got all these great ideas about living underground with just a few good men. We can start all over again. It doesn't seem to have much grasp on the idea of biology and how reproduction works. And also, you know, he's got a sort of like, he's a bit of a revolutionary, and I think you've got to put this into context. I think when it was in the mid-70s, we'd just gone through a lot of strikes, so I think having a little pop at the unions maybe, because he turns out to be, David Essex's character turns out to be, you know, nothing more than a bit of a homoerotic Marxist dreamer, shall we say, whose plans don't really amount to anything. And I think it's quite funny that he's just, you know, he wants to start a new civilization underground, and he's just dug a little bit of a hole in his basement. Anyway, that's a bit of a digression. So yeah, I would definitely recommend Wayne's World. Jeff Wayne's musical version of The War of the Worlds is worth listening to, yes. Oh, and also at the very end of it, it seems like NASA has now gone off. This is on the record. NASA has now gone off to Mars, doing their first apparent mission to Mars, and then they say, "Oh no, what's that? There's some flares," and then the communications, there's some green, you know. Anyway, but they seem to go back to Mars. Did they completely forget about this whole invasion thing? Yeah, you know. Right, and the last couple. These last couple I got just this last weekend gone. This is from a charity shop near me. I picked up this one, 24 Karat Purple, which is, surprise surprise, a Deep Purple best of. We have on here, we have Woman from Tokyo, Fireball, Strange Kind of Woman, Never Before, and Black Knight on side 1. And on side 2 we have Speed King, Smoke on the Water, Naturally, and Child in Time. All 12 minutes of it, which is the live version. And it shows you all the different records that you could get from your Deep Purple back catalogue. However, I did notice something. All these tracks on here, these seem to be drawn entirely from the Ian Gillan era of Deep Purple, because I did wonder why put a 12-minute live song on your best of and eat up all that time, which could have been better spent with some of the songs. I mean, there's no Hush on here, there's no Stormbringer on here, there's no Burn on here, but I guess if they're having to pick entirely from Ian Gillan's stuff, I guess they could have had even Space Trucking or Rat Bat Blue, and there's not even Highway Star on here. I mean, you know, Child in Time's alright, but it's you know, 12 minutes is probably, I don't know, 9 minutes too long. Ian Gillan's wailing does outstay its welcome quite just a little bit. Yeah, 12 minutes. So, and also, Deep Purple best of. You know, we'll have a meeting about the cover. Oh, what should we do about the cover? Oh, how about we just have like one colour? Okay, which colour? I guess it's called Carrot Purple, but the gold, I guess. Yeah, it's just a shitty shade of gold. Why not call it? Why not put it purple? Why not make it purple? And finally, from the same place, and also for £1, or I should say that one was £1. I got this, which caught my eye. I thought that doesn't look. That looks a bit weird. I don't remember seeing that as an album cover from e.l.o. This is the second volume of a best of series from Harvest Records. This is The Light Shines On, Volume 2, which were a pair of records that came out in the late 70s, mid to late 70s, and they were best ofs, their first two albums, the first two e.l.o. albums. So, but this to me smacks of contractual obligations for Harvest Records. I'm imagining they had a little bit of a clause to say that they could release best ofs. Don't know. I'm just completely speculating here. I haven't got a clue. But the write-up on the back is quite amusing. There's this write-up here by a gentleman under the name of Harry Doherty. From which I can tell he was a journalist who wrote for the Melody Maker. But this is probably, you know, it's almost hectoring in its tone. I'll just read out a few passages here. Since we last spoke, so obviously he'd written something for the Volume 1. Since we last spoke, the e.l.o. success story has taken yet another giant step forward. And then it says here, The Light Shines On, this album's predecessor, was designed in part to show British audiences who, let's face it, were embarrassingly slow to catch on to e.l.o. that the present day ultra commercialism of the music had in its roots an admirable sense of adventure and experimentation. That does sound very, very defensive. And then it finishes, it is for that very reason that you should listen attentively to these early works, okay? Yeah, okay, if you insist. Okay, and just to finish off, there was a couple of CDs which I picked up. All these were 50p. I got the Vampire Weekend album. This is the one from 2007. Oops. I also got a Rage Against the Machine album, Evil Empire. I haven't actually listened to this yet, I'll need to spin this. And finally, I was going to leave this behind 50p. OK Computer, and it's the super rare special Snoopy edition, as you can see from that little sticker there. Okay, thank you very much for watching. Come back next time where I'll be going through every single one of my 12-inch records and talking about them. Thank you very much. Bye!